Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, we do this once a year. It's the My Guys episode. Gino and I are going to dive into our favorite prospects that we're pounding the table for in the 2022 NFL Draft.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louis DiBiase, joined as always by my co-host Gino Camilleri. It's a Wednesday edition of the show, episode 3 of 5, downloaded into your phone wherever you get the podcast, available on all platforms, in video form as well on YouTube. And we're always talking birds on Twitter, at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase, LOE, and at GC24_football. We're going to talk some My Guys today, Gino, the players that we pound the table for the most in this year's draft that happens every single year on the show. And we're going to dive into it. One My Guy each from every position. We've got offense in segment 2 and defense in segment 3. But Gino, first, we got to get into some news. A former Eagles starter throughout the 2021 season in the defensive backfield signed today with the Houston Texans, cornerback Steven Nelson. Your thoughts? You weren't the biggest fan of Nelson. It didn't feel like he was going to be back after the first 2 waves of free agency went through. Felt like they were going to pursue the draft to really, replace him. And I didn't think they wanted another Band-Aid signing. And I actually like that they didn't patch that hole already. I don't think you have to patch every hole before the draft.
Especially at a position where you do have quite a large amount of guys and a young core.
And 2 or 3 guys already established for the next few years at least.
Exactly. I mean, you have behind Darius Slay on the outside, Zach McPherson, Jaquan, Mac McCain, Craig James, Kari Vincent Jr. Do any of those names really wow you? Not really, but I would say the belle of the ball is Mr. TBD, who should be a very high draft pick in the draft in a couple weeks here. And I hope they break this 2-decade streak. It is more reactive than anything, because even the Darius Slay decision was a reactive move, because for now over a decade, they have not invested high quality picks in that position. In the 1 year they did, they just got Sidney Jones, and then they got Rasul Douglas, who was playing out of place in that formation that Jim Schwartz just refused to put him where he was played correctly. Sidney Jones has the Achilles injury, comes here, he's just not the same player. And since then, you haven't really invested any pick worthwhile in a player that is going to come in and could instantly start, which at 15, at 18, do I believe even if you don't get Sauce Gardner, you could find a player who could compete to play right away and be your number 2 outside corner? Absolutely. I think there's 3 to 4 guys that I would believe could come in here and play right away. Now, if they don't draft one high, then we have to see what is the next move, which I don't really want to move on to plan D, E, and F. Like, go to plan B, which is the draft, plan A's for agency, sometimes vice versa.
Yeah, and take a look at Steven Nelson too, Gino. That was a summer move last year. I mean, free agency doesn't end before the draft. You can still make a move after. That's why I don't like the patchwork sometimes of always making sure every hole is filled. Like, no, you don't have to do that, especially with the Eagles situation right now. Short term, they're good with 2 of the 3 spots at cornerback with Darius Slay and Avonte Maddox. So you don't have to feel rushed and pressured to throw a ton of money at a Steven Nelson or even bring in yet Xavier Rhodes or Patrick Peterson. Although I'm okay with that idea because I like the idea of a stopgap, a bridge corner CB2 to go in front of your rookie that you draft early. But at the same time, what the Eagles need at corner is a long-term CB1. And that was never going to be addressed through free agency. So to me, I'm fine that Steven Nelson is not back, but they need to make sure that they do invest in the defensive backfield early. Like we've talked about this last week. We had this discussion about, investing in the trenches versus the second and third level this year. This is the year, as you mentioned, they haven't invested a top 3-round pick at corner since Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas in 2017. It's time to invest resources there. And like you mentioned, there's going to be prospects that are worth the picks.
Without a doubt. And you say, yeah, we have to go and buck up in the defensive secondary. Is it okay to wait around in this draft to hit your needs on the defensive line? I believe so, especially you see where they put the resources in linebacker with Hassan Reddick, with Kaiser White. They haven't put anything into that defensive backfield outside of Steven Nelson. There's the talk, or not Steven Nelson, Anthony Harris. Outside of Tyrann Mathieu, who's still just now a tweet and a catchphrase at this point, they have no real resources in that second cornerback position, in a number 1 or 2 safety position. Anthony Harris, like, he's a good sub-package type of guy to get in there, but you don't want him playing 65 snaps a game, in my opinion. They really need a player that can be versatile, play man coverage, help out versus the run. And in this draft, you look at guys like Andrew Booth Jr., Trent McDuffie. Some people love Roger McCreary and what he can do. There are options outside of Sauce Gardner, outside of Kyle Hamilton. I like Lewis Cine, right, Lou? That's one of the guys that could come right away and play in Philadelphia with his ability to stop the run and his ability to be a top safety in this backfield, which is saying something because they haven't put resources there that a rookie could be the biggest impact player at that position in 2022. And to me and you, I don't really think that would be a shocker.
No, I don't think so either. And I think they should invest in corner early, as do you. And I think that them not signing Steven Nelson and not making a big move at corner, we've heard that they've been trying at safety, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus Williams. But at corner, it seems like they're more patient. And I like that because it points to them seemingly being invested early on in this draft at the position. So we'll see what happens in a few weeks. We're going to get into some my guys coming up next, though. We will get into some corners that we are in love with in this draft class, as well as the other positions on both sides of the football. That's coming up next, guys. Don't go anywhere. First, a shout out from one of our sponsors. It's Shady Rays. It's an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners today, head to shadyrays.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season. Summer's coming up. Get 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles, and we thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. A big announcement, too, guys. Starting Thursday, April 28th, the day of the first round of the NFL Draft, make sure you tune into Locked On NFL Draft's live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft with all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders, including Gino and I. And for those of you dying to know who your team's going to take, catch Odyssey and Locked On's NFL Mock Draft Special, hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson of the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show, all week leading up to the first pick. Gino and I will also be live for the first round on Thursday, April 28th. Cannot wait for that, Gino. And we're going to be rooting for a lot of our my guys for the Eagles to select, guys that we believe in more than most at many different positions. And when you think about it, like going through the 4 years together on the show, I don't know, man, like the Eagles haven't taken a lot of Lou and Gino, my guys, right? I think 2020, they took a lot of them, but outside of that draft class, it was, not to be had. Charles Omeni, he was one of the, big ones we bring up, and there's players that we fell in love with. They just didn't bring in.
I loved Teron Jackson last year, so I got a hit of that.
Well,
late.
in 2020, you got John Hightower, I got Quez Watkins, so they gave us a lot in 2020.
Devontae Smith was a thrill, right?
Well,
man.
sure.
I mean, we both loved him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back like a couple of years ago, before we started this show, Sidney Jones was like the apple of my eye for quite some time.
Dalvin Cook was mine that year, man.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to take him, but
what a world if they would have swapped those picks. That would have been something, my friend.
Absolutely. They were trying to get him, but Minnesota moved up 2 spots to grab Dalvin Cook. But Gino, let's focus on the offensive side of the football first. We're going to go through each position and talk about our my guys. One player at each spot that we're going to pound the table for most. I'm curious who yours is at the quarterback position.
Carson Strong, man. Like, I know he's not going to be a top quarterback in this league by any means, but I see a lot of like what teams fell in love with when the Broncos took Drew Lock.
Yeah.
But I think he can do more with his arm than a guy like Drew Lock could. And I just see him being in a system where it's just like rhythm passing base, like you get the ball out quick where he doesn't have to move around. If he goes to the Saints and like can hit Michael Thomas on a slant route 25 times a game, I think that could be a realistic spot for him. But I just loved him in college. It probably would have been Jay Kaner if he were to have entered this draft, but it'll probably
that'll be your my guy quarterback next year.
Oh, man, especially when he has another good season in 2022 and the Eagles potentially could need a quarterback then. I'll be pounding the table. But Carson Strong right now, I love Malik Willis, don't get me wrong. I am a fan of Matt Corral. I just love the pure arm strength of Carson Strong.
It's hard not to, man.
It's hard not to see this guy throw 65-yard bombs and be excited by it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think Strong, Malik Willis, and I don't know, maybe Desmond Ridder have just like some incredible arm power in this draft class. And of course, for me, it is Malik Willis. And it's not just that it's he's the best of a bad bunch, Gino, in the 2020 class. To be honest, he's my favorite quarterback prospect since the 2018 class, outside of, not, I would take him over anybody. Like I'd take Kyler Murray coming out of school over Malik, Trevor Lawrence as well. But he's personally my favorite quarterback since Lamar Jackson. You can see the theme with what kind of quarterback that I do enjoy. I just think his ceiling's limitless, and I think his floor isn't as low as people think because of the football IQ and the mobility. So, and to be honest, over the last 2 years, the only guy I would have took ahead of him is Trevor Lawrence. So I think it's obvious Malik Willis is my guy, and I think the Detroit Lions are going to get a good one, second overall. I really do think he's going number 2.
Yeah, and there was talk today from Peter Schrager, who was on the Pat McAfee show, and he said that there's talk that Matt Corral could go 6 to Carolina.
Yeah.
Like we've been saying.
And everybody apparently has a first-round grade on Desmond Ridder. I mean, is there a chance Kenny Pickett's like the 4th quarterback, as he probably should be?
Great situation for Philadelphia, Lou, with more quarterbacks going in the top 10 to 12 picks. Great scenario for the idea of trading up to get one of your guys who could potentially fall because of all these quarterbacks going early. And we hope teams get desperate like Matt Rule is in Carolina. He could be on his last chance there. Maybe he wants to say, okay, it's Matt Corral. I'm all in. If it doesn't work, I'm out of Carolina.
Who is your my guy at running back, Gino? We haven't really dove deep into running back because the Eagles seem kind of set there, but who's the guy that really caught your eye this year?
I seem to always take to 1 or 2 Arizona State guys a year. I think Rachaad White is such an interesting guy coming out of Arizona State, being 6 foot and averaging 10 yards per rush in his junior season. He is a big back who can scoot. I go back to Brandon Ayuk, where when I talked about him, I always said he had his eyes on the end zone. Like Rachaad White, man, he's ready to pop a touchdown at any point. I don't know if the Eagles do take one this year, but if they do, I hope it's a player of that style where he is a big guy, but just doesn't fit a first down style role or maybe like a third down role in this day and age where you need just 1 or 2 yards. Yeah. He really does have that explosive edge to his game. You get the pass catching element with him as well. Now with vet running backs being devalued to the point where there's probably not going to be another first round one unless Breece Hall and somebody falls in love with him.
Yeah.
This is a pretty deep class, Lou, and it's kind of a shame that we don't have a huge need there because there are some interesting guys. Like I almost said,
same way.
Out of Florida, like I find him in his game at 5'7", being just a bowling ball style back, so intriguing. Then you look at guys like Rachaad White and the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's kind of Baskin-Robbins-esque, like take your flavor and you're probably going to get 1 or 2 traits of a guy that you thoroughly enjoy.
I agree. I feel the same way about Georgia running back James Cook. Dalvin Cook was my guy for me in 2017. His brother is the same because he reminds me so much of Dalvin. He's not the same talent as an in-between running back, but Gino, he's the perfect kind of running back you want coming into the 2022 NFL. He's fresh. He was in a committee in Georgia. He's explosive. He's a deep threat as a receiver. That's the kind of guy that you want, especially with what you're going to get value-wise, like day 2, late, like a 3rd round pick. I would love him on the Eagles, but I feel the same way as you. It's like, I almost wish they had a need at running back because I don't think they would take Cook where he's going to go.
No, I completely agree with you, Lou. And if they do happen to luck into a guy being the best player available by a long shot in Kenny Gainwell last year. Like, I didn't believe that was going to be the selection.
Well, maybe you think you're going to trade Miles Sanders or not pay him. I mean, if they take
also
a running back,
another
that
variable
could also tip their hand for sure. Gino, wide receiver. This is a position we love to talk about over the years because the Eagles have just missed on it so much. Not so much this time with Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins, but there's a good chance they're still going to take one of the first 2 rounds. Who is the my guy for you? And it could be a late one.
I have nobody.
No,
absolutely. I have nobody that's on like the level of Devontae Smith, where like it's a 10 out of 10
2018.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I love Devontae Smith after I saw him in that championship game where he catches the game-winning touchdown, and the rest is history. Now he's in Philly, and we love it. Another player that I do thoroughly enjoy his game out of the same conference, not out of the same school though. Treylon Burks out of Arkansas, man. I just see a lot of those elements of a guy like Kelvin Johnson. Like, not saying he's as elite or up to that level, but like a guy who can run 4.4 on film. I don't care about what his 40 time was. Like, I see it on film, especially against Alabama, which was arguably his best tape from the 2021 season. Burks in Philadelphia right now, Lou, is everything they're missing at the wide receiver position. Big body, can instantly win slants, has that yards after the catch ability in a sense that Devontae and Quez don't really give you, where he can be a big physical guy, break 2 to 3 tackles per catch. Yeah, you have that on the inside with Dallas Goedert, but wouldn't it be great to have that element on the outside as well?
I agree.
And you always look at the best game a player played against, like when it comes to talent. You put the Alabama tape on for any SEC opponent to see how those guys do. You watch that game alone, you don't need to go on to game 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like, you know who Treylon Burks is as a player, and I believe that Philadelphia might be a little too rich at 18, but somebody like the Green Bay Packers in the late or the mid-20s, Lou, are going to be gifted into this guy, and he's going to be an instant impact player in the NFL.
For the same reason you love Treylon Burks, I love Christian Watson. Gino, I don't feel like they need
I knew you were going to say him, so I didn't even waste my breath.
I appreciate it. This is my guy for me at receiver for the same reasons. Like, he's 6'4". He has the top athleticism scores at the combine for a 6'4" plus receiver since 2003, better than Calvin Johnson. And again, I don't feel like the Eagles need a contested catch guy. I think it would be nice to complement Smith and Watkins in that way. But at the same time, they don't need it. So I want a guy still to have run after the catch ability like Watson or Burks. It just so happens that those guys are also, 6'3" plus, and that's huge for an offense to have a receiver with that kind of overall physical ability. And Watson is that guy too. So Watson and Burks, to me, I think at 18, I'm comfortable with both. And I think they're both going to go in the first round.
It's a touch too rich for my blood at 18. Especially because I
moved down too if they want to go that route.
Okay, yeah, that's what you do. But like we said a couple minutes ago, with the high interest in quarterbacks, those, I would say, positions the Eagles value more inside the building, being defensive line, probably being defensive secondary over wide receiver, where you just drafted the Heisman Trophy winner last year, who's a bona fide star in this league, going to give him every accolade that he does deserve. Maybe you wait a little bit on wide receiver and we go to day 2. Plenty of guys on day 2 that I love. Plenty of guys on day 3. I mean, we could go down this list forever. We'd have to make our top 10 rankings, which will be coming out soon. And
they're coming.
You could see more of our interest in that department. But right now, like Treylon Burks, I just have been envisioning him since that Alabama game, tying it full circle to what Devontae Smith was.
Yeah, Arkansas and North Dakota State are both using them as like they're getting Deebo Samuel comparisons based on that, but they're bigger than Deebo. So yeah, two really fun studies, Watson and Burks. Gino, tight end is a deep class this year. There's a lot of variety, top end talent. Day 2, day 3, there's going to be value. Who's your my guy at tight end?
Sticking with the Mountain West, like my second Mountain West guy here, I'm going Trey McBride out of Colorado State. I was there. I hand-timed him at a 4.5 140. Absolutely surreal. Heard the audible gasp from all the scouts around me. A couple scouts said, well, he's getting picked in the second round now. And the Eagles have a dire need for that second tight end position. Trey McBride, you talk about a guy who can block. He can catch every ball around him. He was a one-man wrecking crew for Colorado State. They didn't have a big semblance of an offense, but when they did go and win games, it was through Trey McBride. And even when they didn't, the offense went through Trey McBride.
Yeah.
This class especially, Lou, we talk about it in regards to that class when Dawson Knox was around a couple years ago, how good that class was that a player of that caliber fell to the third round. Trey McBride, he's probably going to be one of the top 2 tight ends taken. But even after that, like tight end 6, 7, 8, and 9 would probably be a number 2, 3, or 4 in many other draft classes.
Yeah, and one of those guys to me is Wisconsin tight end Jake Ferguson, and I don't think
that
he's
one.
he's not a top 3, top 4 tight end maybe in this class, but you know who I'm going to compare him to a receiver in this class. He's the Jahan Dotson of the tight ends. Like I think he might have the greatest pair of hands of these prospects. He doesn't blow away everybody with run after the catch ability or the same speed, kind of like Dotson at receiver. Very reliable, will still probably be a 1st or 2nd round pick, but he'll probably be like the 6th or 7th guy off the board. I feel like it's the same with Ferguson, but he's long, great hands. He can block too, over 900 blocking snaps at Wisconsin. Great body adjustments too. Jim Nagy pointed that out specifically at the Senior Bowl. To me, we talked about Burks and Watson. If you don't get that kind of big-bodied wide receiver, maybe you go Garrett Wilson or Dotson, or you don't take one at all. Having a 6'4" contested catch guy at tight end like Ferguson, that would certainly help a lot. So Ferguson just seems like a reliable, perfect tight end too. And you're not, again, I'm not thinking the Eagles are going to draft a tight end in the 2nd round because you have Dallas Goedert. So more in what I envision they're looking for, I think Ferguson fits the mold. I think McBride is certainly better. I think though, with where my head is at tight end, I like Ferguson.
Yeah, and I could see a team like Buffalo, for example, like trading back a few spots and taking Trey McBride early in the 2nd round. I totally agree. But that doesn't take away my absolute love for the guy.
Oh, right, yeah. This isn't a show about who we think the Eagles are going to take. It's the Lou and Gino my guys for the entire
this is a very selfish show for us. Like we are parading our show dogs around right now. Like we got the best of the best in terms of what we like. And Trey McBride especially, and I know Jake Ferguson, both of those guys impact players in the catch game at tight end, which it really comes down to that over what you can do in the blocking game, where just a decade ago, Brent Selleck was everything you wanted in a tight end. Now Brent Selleck's, they don't get drafted at tight end. They don't even get taken in priority free agency. Like you have to be able to do something. Tyree Jackson was a quarterback and they said, oh, you're an athlete. We're going to put you at tight end. So it doesn't really matter what you can do in terms of blocking. It's all about through the air and how you can help in the pass game.
Gino, do you have an offensive line, my guy? For me, like I like Darian Kennard a lot from Kentucky. I like the way he anchors. He competed really well in Mobile. He's a big body, could use a tackle reserve. I think for the Eagles, though, he's going to go too high. Is there somebody for you that you like up front?
I really do like Zion out of Boston College, like his versatility and just his mean demeanor about him. And when you go to the Senior Bowl and you see the one-on-ones, I think what is like the most clear and away dominant performance that you can have is in defensive line or offensive line one-on-ones. And Zion Johnson, if you watch it back, didn't lose a one-on-one the entire time against some of the top interior defensive line talent that there is in this draft class. Yeah. And Zion could be a guy opposed to Tyler Linderbaum that you could bring him in right away and he could be an upgrade at guard for you. And he could play center once Jason Kelce is gone.
And they love that versatility, man.
Yeah, Tyler Linderbaum is probably going to sit on the bench until Kelce does retire. Zion would be an instant upgrade, and I'm sure Jeff Stoutland would love a player like that. I believe he was there at Boston College during the offensive line workouts because they have multiple players, especially Lindstrom is there as well, who I'm very high on too. But you need an impact player on the inside. Get a guy who's physical, who's athletic, who can anchor. Zion Johnson does all three of those out of Boston College.
Gino, we'll get into defensive my guys coming up next. Defensive line, edge, linebacker, safety, and corner. Don't go anywhere. That's coming up right here on Locked On Eagles.
But before we get to that, the only thing sweeter than drafting one of our my guys is doing it while we're eating a Built Bar, while we're watching the 2022 NFL Draft. You know, in between segments when we're doing that 4-hour-long draft show, Lou and I, We got to stay on top of the fuel. We got to be ready to go on the mic. We are eating Built Bars. I personally love the mint chocolate. I go for it every time. People are opposed to mint chocolate. I don't know why. It's always the fastest selling one when you were selling chocolate as a kid. So let's just say you're going door to door, you're selling Built Bars. I guarantee some of those mint brownie ones would go as well. Not only are they delicious, but they are nutritious as well. For those health conscious individuals, what more could you ask for in a bar that tastes like candy? It's only 130 calories, 4 grams of carbs, 4 grams of sugars. And oh, did I mention it has 17 grams of protein? I have one before I go to the gym, before I go to lacrosse practice, literally at any time of the day. For anything that you do, Built Bar is the easiest and fastest way to stay incredibly on top of your nutrition, as well as eating something that is delicious. Make sure you go to built.com today to use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED 15 to take 15% off your order of Built Bars. You know we're always having them here at the Locked On Eagles podcast.
All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. It's the My Guys edition of the show. We love to do this once every year where Gino and I dive into our favorite prospects at each position in a draft class. So we did offense, Gino, quarterback, running back, tight end, receiver, offensive line. Now we go into the defense where the Eagles are going to need a lot more help through this draft. I want to start in the trenches, and we're going to specifically start with interior defensive linemen. Is there a defensive tackle for you? And again, it can be a tweener, a versatile player that plays outside and in, but who's your favorite, like, traditional interior defensive lineman in this draft?
We took him on our mock draft on Monday. Thomas Booker out of Stanford. You know I love that tweener mentality on the inside, and so do the Philadelphia Eagles. Look at the Milton Williams pick. Look at where they deploy Fletcher Cox. Look at where they deploy Javon Hargrave. Anybody who plays on the interior, you have to be able to do multiple things with inside this system. Thomas Booker, he's long, he's athletic, he's chiseled up. He played inside and outside at Stanford where they really go light on the line. They usually go 3 defensive linemen for a majority of their snaps. He was asked to do a lot of things, set the edge. He was able to pass rush through the interior gaps. Thomas Booker, to me, is everything I've really loved in my guys throughout the past. Charles Omenihu, Jeffrey Simmons, these defensive tackles that play the 3-tech position, where I believe the Eagles would probably go bigger on the inside, a 2-gapping style player. Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, we know what they can do on the interior of Georgia. But if they were going to go the traditional route of what they liked in the past, Thomas Booker fits all of those elements for me.
I agree. I think for the same reason you mentioned Charles Omenihu, a player me and you really wanted that inside and out kind of guy, can play defensive tackle, can play edge. Joshua Paschal of Kentucky kind of reminds me of that guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, where I don't think, he played a lot of edge in Kentucky, but, he wasn't a stand-up player, always going after the tackle. He was moving around, and I think that would be a good player to have on this defense where it's different now, Gino. It's not as, I don't want to say Jim Schwartz's defense was traditional, but it wasn't as creative as this defense is going to be. So I like what they have in Milton Williams for the same reason as I would like Paschal. Having multiple guys like that, especially with this defense, I think could go a long way.
Absolutely so. And you see the players that they're bringing in the front 7 of that defense, Hassan Riddick and Kaiser White, both 2 guys that can adapt to whatever situation they're in. I think Paschal, you're right, Lou, asked to do a lot at Kentucky.
Yeah.
In that conference, too, it's not easy. And you're defending top athletes and you're going against top athletes on the offensive line. Paschal is a player, plays inside and out. I think you and I both are under that paradigm of what we like on an interior guy. They can't just be a one-dimensional element. I know people say that a lot about Jordan Davis, but he really brings multiple dimensions.
Oh,
he could take on doubles. Like if he's one-on-one,
Danny Shelton coming into the league,
absolutely not. No, or like a Malcolm Brown that the Patriots took.
100%. Who's your edge, my guy? This is a deep, great class. Last year wasn't as good for pass rushers. On the edge this year, who's your guy?
I could take the easy way out and say Kayvon, but I'm not going to. I think I've talked ad nauseum about him. The one guy that I believe in other classes could probably be a surefire first-round pick, and the individual that he was comped to from Daniel Jeremiah the other day, this being Boye Mafe being compared to Kwity Paye. I believe both of those players are what you want in a modern edge rusher. I know you weren't as high on Paye as others were. I know you don't love Michigan edge rushers as much as I do, but Boye Mafe coming out of the Big Ten, a freak, an absolute freak. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list prior to the season. He tested out of the moon. You sat on the same plane as him coming home from the Senior Bowl. It seems like it's written in the stars that he would be one of my guys. But I saw him play live against Colorado here in Denver. And, man, they didn't put up a point because of how good that defensive line was for Minnesota. And it starts with Boye Mafe. Not your traditional guy where you look at and you're like, yeah, that guy plays defensive line. Like,
well, I didn't think that at the Senior Bowl. When I saw him get to the quarterback, he got a sack. I'm like, is that an edge? I mean, I was like, okay. And so Mafe definitely got my attention.
And you look at what Josh Sweat brings. I see a lot of those elements in Boye Mafe, the length, the speed, the ability to bend and corner. You go the opposite kind of what you have now in bringing Derek Barnett and Brandon Graham back. Hassan Reddick is kind of like a peek into the future. Boye Mafe probably could do more with his hand in the dirt than a guy like Hassan Reddick could because he's more like an outside rusher, can get in between the gaps. Boye Mafe could be that missing element of what you need at that edge position, which is kind of a do-everything type of player.
Mine's a low-hanging fruit one just because he's going to go in the top 10, but Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, like it's hard not to just wish that this guy could fall. And originally, Gino, early in the offseason, like he was more of a mid to late first-round pick. But then more and more people started to watch the film. He dominated the Senior Bowl, by far the best defensive player there, to the point where he didn't even play in the game. I don't even think he practiced halfway through like the second day because he was just dominating so much. They're like, all right, that's it. He's good. Mm-hmm. And he's such a vocal leader too. I just feel like he's going to be the heart and soul of a defense for a decade. I mean, he can win with power, speed, counters. He's good against the run. It's crazy that he had to transfer from Georgia, that he couldn't even get playing time. It's not really surprising seeing how many Georgia defensive linemen are going to go in the first round this year, but Johnson's a legit prospect, and for obvious reasons, he's going to go in the top 10, but it's just hard to not have him as a favorite prospect in this class.
And I think we've seen an insight into who Jermaine Johnson is, being on Last Chance U as well. You saw him coming out of there, going to Georgia, then going to Florida State, really acing every part of the test in this offseason. You see guys that rise like him in these media mocks for a reason. Like the media comes around to a guy that's 6'4", can play the run, can play the pass.
I feel like he was higher on boards for teams from the start.
Absolutely.
Right? I think it was more the media is slow on these players.
Yeah, they knew once he transferred to Georgia that this kid was a star. And to say that he had to transfer because you had like a generational type defense, that's bonus points to him, in my opinion.
Incredible. Linebacker, Gino, who is the my guy for you? I feel like I might know who it is, but I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Chad Muma.
That's right.
Of course, man.
See if we can get some redemption for missing out on a Wyoming linebacker.
Yes, sir. And why I love Chad Muma and why I love a lot of the guys that come out of Wyoming is their ability to play multiple positions, a lot of them being former safeties that became linebackers or vice versa. Marcus Epps was in that territory, did a lot of that stuff at Wyoming, comes out, plays Minnesota, comes to Philadelphia. You see that element, but a player in Chad Muma is exactly what Zach Wilson was when we wanted to draft him a couple of years ago. And Zach Wilson was the first linebacker that ultimately changed my paradigm of what this player is in the 21st century. When we were down there at the Senior Bowl in our Scouting Academy live classroom, Dan Hatman said, when all of us gave like a 6th, 7th round grade to Zach Wilson, he said, take away the running element of what a linebacker can do. What can they do against the pass? And then we all clicked and said, oh, this guy's much better than what we thought because of what he can do in the pass game. And now you have to be a pass-first defender as a linebacker before anybody gives a crap about what you can do against the run. It doesn't.
TJ Edwards would have been a favorite for most defenses, like
in 06, man, he's he's a second-round pick for sure.
The Eagles would be set at linebacker in 2006 if they had TJ Edwards. No, it's a great point, man. That's the way linebackers moving. And it's why this is my only other low-hanging fruit, my guy here. But I mean, Devin Lloyd, I'm just obsessed with, like, Gino, you look at the like what the Cardinals have at linebacker right now, Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins. Jordan Hicks had a career year last year, and they let him go to Minnesota because of these two unicorns, like the length, the range. As you mentioned, it's a pass-first league. You need your linebackers to be able to hold their own in space, not just in zone, but in man coverage. And I feel like with Lloyd, I don't know. I think Nakobe Dean might be better sideline to sideline right now. But Lloyd, the traits, I mean, talk about betting on traits. It is Devin Lloyd. If there was a linebacker the Eagles were going to take in the first round, this would be the type. I don't think they're going to do it, but this is the exact kind of linebacker that I love, and it's so fun to watch on film. Can rush the passer, is lengthy, is athletic. Just, again, when you're an upside guy, Devin Lloyd is the prospect.
Yeah, he was thrilling to watch beat Oregon 2 out of 3 weeks and absolutely crushed it in the Rose Bowl. And he is 24 years old, which does scare some teams if you want to go younger. But you look at what the modern day linebacker is, you can have the discussion on Nakobe Dean, you can have the discussion on Christian Harris, any one of those guys. Devin Lloyd does it all. He could get to the quarterback. He could chase out to the sideline. He could defend the run in the middle. As a linebacker, that's the three-headed dragon of what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to do all those things. Get sideline to sideline, cover in the pass, and be able to come down at the point of attack. And I think both of those guys, rightfully so, we enjoy their play because we know they would be good additions to Philadelphia, who really doesn't have a guy who can do all of those things.
I just want a cyborg looking guy. You know what I mean? On defense.
Just like Darian Beavers was like 6'4" and 260.
I want that just raw, physically gifted player. Gino, let's move and finish up the show in the defensive backfield where, as we mentioned in segment 1, the Eagles need a lot of help. Who is my guy at cornerback?
I think I know who you're going to say.
I think most people do. This is the issue with my guys being so late. I've already hyped the crap out of most.
All right,
of my
I got to
guys.
take one, and we're going to go in together on this one.
Yeah.
You could put up the graphic.
Let's do it.
Tariq Woolen, man.
Dude, how can you not? Like, when was the last time a prospect like this came into the draft at corner? 6'4",
unicorn.
4.26 speed. We talked about unicorns at linebacker. It's rare that a unicorn like this comes out at cornerback.
And you need somebody that has measurables that match up to Darius Slay. This guy exceeds everything in that department. He's longer, he's bigger, he can tackle much better being at that size. Yeah, he is a little bit raw in terms of his development, but you bring him into a room with Devontae Maddox, Darius Slay, 2 very good technicians at the position.
And you can bring in an Xavier Rhodes if you want to help bring him along.
That, brother.
Yeah, you don't have to start him right away, but the upside, I think, is too much to pass up. If you don't go corner in round 1 and he's available in the second, I think he's going to go early in the second round, if not even late first. I think he has that much upside that a team might say, screw it, let's do it.
I totally agree. And seeing what he did at the Senior Bowl, seeing what he did at the Combine, what he did as pro day, talk about somebody hitting every box. It's like going to the SAT and knowing every question. Right. Like, he did everything he had to. And now it's just what team falls in love with the traits, what teams fall in love with the ability to develop somebody like that. I always think about what Jeff Stoutland says and what he said about Jordan Mailata. If I could just get my hands on this guy and mold him like a ball of clay.
Ball of clay, man. Yep.
What he could become. I really see that in Tariq Woolen and what they're able to do now in the defensive secondary and what their coaching was able to do in terms of elevating that play last year, getting probably the best season out of Devontae Maddox and arguably one of the best seasons of Darius Slay's career, which is saying a lot. I believe they could do that with a guy like Tariq Woolen.
I'm with you, man. Tariq Woolen is my guy at cornerback. Let's finish up the show with your position, safety. Who is Gino's top safety, or I should say my guy safety for 2022? It was Nazir Adderley a few years ago. You know, you've got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You've really been in on these prospects. Who's your guy this year?
This one was difficult. I don't have, like I said, a top guy like when I loved Devontae Smith, when I really loved Nasir Adderley. But in this class, it's hard to look outside of a guy in Jaquan Brisker who is like, this man can defend any.
We've got the same one at safety too. We were eye in the defensive backfield, man.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too, though, Lou. And I don't really have this a fixation on Penn State players like many people inside of Pennsylvania do. I wasn't the biggest Penn State guy growing up, and some of their guys that we've landed in Philadelphia, like Sharif Miller, have like left a bad taste in my mouth. But you talk about a guy who really is a leader of men and does his talking on the field by the way he plays, and then goes and backs it up in the locker room with how well people respond to him. Talk about a leader, Lou. Jaquan Brisker fits all of that, and I haven't even mentioned his on-field play and like what he can do in terms of bracketing coverage with a guy like Avonte Maddox, being able to match up against tight ends at his size, and his athleticism is exactly what this team has been striving to get in that defensive secondary. Look at Marcus Epps. Look at Marcus Epps and who he is as an athlete, like very limited. And then think about the exact opposite player. That's what you're getting in Jaquan Brisker, who is just a do-it-all Swiss Army knife type of guy who, when you look at all of his elements, he might not be elite in any of them, but you're going to get very good play out of multiple different areas in his arsenal. And I think he's a day one player. I think he's a player you could take if you were to move back to, let's say, 24, 25. I'm 100% okay with that. There are guys that I'm in love with. After that, Verone McKinley, of course. There's guys I'm in love with. In front of that, maybe Lewis Cine is a better flavor for some than others. But Jaquan Brisker, give me the best of all the worlds that you need to cover in the position at safety, being able to get sideline to sideline, being able to make plays at the catch point, doing almost wide receiver-esque type of things at the catch point, Lou. This is your player. Jaquan Brisker, bring him from Penn State.
Yeah.
Put him on the first charter to Philadelphia and put him in a jersey, and he's going to be an instant hometown hero.
And I'm a bigger fan of the safety class than most. I think I'd be comfortable with a few of these guys in round one. I like Lewis Cine. I love Jalen Petrie from Baylor, one of my favorite players in this class. But I think with Brisker, he's just, as you said, he doesn't do anything elite, but you know, he's got elite physical ability for a safety with the way he's built. I think he's more powerful and a better, better for in the box type of work than Daxton Hill or Jalen Petrie. And I do think he's maybe a little more athletic and better in coverage, at least what I've seen, than Lewis Cine. I don't think it's too far off, but I think Brisker, after Kyle Hamilton, like let's say you moved up and you wanted a corner, or Hamilton just doesn't fall and you still want to go safety early on, as this team probably needs to do, I think Brisker will be the biggest bang for your buck. So I'm with you, man. Jaquan Brisker, my guy.
JT Woods was a close second for me. And I see a lot
of Baylor
of that.
Safeties, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, I see like a bargain Jaquan Brisker in a JT Woods.
He's going to go earlier than, like, I'm seeing a lot of rankings where he's buried. I think he might be a day two pick.
Baylor players always go higher than expected just because of their athleticism. Like, don't sleep on these guys at all.
And both safeties have it, man. Petrie and Woods for sure. But Brisker's our guy at safety if the Eagles do go in that direction. That is the My Guys episode right here on Locked On Eagles. We rolled through all sides of the football, every position. Let us know what your My Guys are. Hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnBirds, at GC24_football, and at DBLCLOE. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the show. We're in video form as well on YouTube. And we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Locked On Eagles for Gino Camilleri. I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. Thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.